When I was invited to talk about governance and the prevailing myth that governance is something that is anti-agile, so the first thing that I thought about was the title. What would I call it? So hence the title. Agile governance is not an oxymoron. So throughout this course, what I will do is I will try and illustrate how they can go hand in hand. So take me for instance. Yeah, that was me a long time ago when I had a lot more hair and I was a lot more younger. So when I was put into the corporate machinery and started to think in a very waterfall way and in the constraints of your silos and throwing the ball over the other side of the court to production support or to the business, right? So that was my day in and day out existence. And I would always think that, well, you know what, an idle mind is, as the saying goes, a devil's workshop, right? And then on the onset of our agile transformation, it did, metamorphosize my thought process and my approach. And at this point, I can proudly claim to say that an idle mind is an agile workshop. Okay, so I will illustrate how this reflects in our journey as well. On a side note, I think as you go along the journey, there is a correlation, but I only have one data point to prove it, that the wisdom is inversely proportional to the hair on your head. So I'm open to your thoughts on that. So Société Générale, as you heard, is a 150-year-old bank. It's an investment bank, also a universal bank. There's 3 areas of operations, which is the retail, the corporate investment banking, international and global investment banking. 150K associates as we speak. We are in multiple countries, 67 countries as we speak. And we aim to be the trusted partner for all of our clients. We transform economies and cultures, and that is the mission of Société Générale. So the 4 key things that resonate with all of our associates is commitment, responsibility, innovation, and team spirit, and those are the core values that we believe in. So this is a slide that most of you may have seen, the picture from Enrique Nyberg. So the business agility or agile governance itself is a fine balancing act. There is a good deal that great chance that you can fall into the chaos of letting go and be it the Wild West. On the other side, if you overdo it, there is also a greater chance that you will micromanage and it will be seen as a bureaucracy. So I would say caution and caution ahead. So just to illustrate that, in our strategic plan, agility is one of the key pillars in addition to an open banking architecture and using the cloud. So we aim to be the digital bank of the future with agile as a cornerstone. So our journey in the agile landscape started about 7 years ago, where in 2011, we started off from moving from lean and waterfall to more agile practices. And on the journey, we moved towards more continuous delivery, continuous integration. 2017 presented us with an opportunity where there was a reorg for IT to be more closely aligned with the businesses or structured along the businesses. And that is when we started the Agile at Scale journey to ensure that we deliver value to our businesses in a much more co-located and co-constructive way. And by 2020 is when we aim to complete this journey, which would transform close to about 8,000 IT associates and more than 1,000 business associates. So why Agile? Of course, definitely to increase the value to the business, to improve efficiency and profitability to the business, and to show the value, to attract and retain talent. And we aim to be the go-to place for agility in the investment banking space. And also to create a culture of innovation by the element of co-construction. So what inspired us was, again, the much aligned or malaligned Spotify model. We took our inspiration from the SAFE framework. And we thought we'll call it Spotty Safe, but yeah, it didn't sound right. So we looked inward as well, looked to our own needs. and I think it's definitely the SocGen way of Agile at scale that we embarked upon. So in any transformation, you need to also design what the target operating model would look like. So this is a very simplified version of our target operating model. It's the terms you will definitely recognize. Feature teams form the units at the lowest level, which group into tribes. You form chapters and horizontal management across the teams. You have leagues, which are either your business analyst league or your UX, UI leagues or your production support leagues. And then across tribes and across IT units, you have guilds, which are more of voluntary sharing of best practices and synergies. Okay, so that is the target operating model. So every team would aspire to reach this target operating model. In the past, they were all mostly IT application centric, and now they become more business value chain centric. Okay, so every team would be required to go through this journey and reach this target operating model. Just a reminder that unlike some other banks who have embarked on this journey, the transformation is only complete when there is a good degree of maturity on both the continuous delivery practices and agile at scale practices. It is not when the team is formed into place. It is after the team is formed into place and the journey moves along. So what are the impacts of agile at scale? So there is a great degree of change that we undergo. There is operating model change where we need to kind of showcase the splitting of the responsibilities between development and the business. We also are going to be changing the way in which our large programs are going to be steered. We move to what is known as a capacity-based model, where product owners are, have full control over the capacity of the IT teams. And of course, there is a great degree of the role changes, and HR is definitely one of the areas where we have a great degree of impact. So my colleague Sumant will talk about that tomorrow. So look forward to his speech. And of course, the way in which we do the finance, I just talked about the capacity-based modeling management. So there is definitely a cultural and mindset change, and all of this is going to be enabled by a very robust change management structure and enabled by our coaches. So talking about the program governance, it is extremely crucial that we started out with a well-structured program covering all aspects of the governance. So the target operating model design that you just saw is something that is the foundation. So the coaches, the Agile Center, the Agile program itself, they helped in co-create and construct this operating model, which then is implemented by a team that kind of tracks how this operating model is being implemented on the ground. And there are periodic assessments, there's periodic coaching, there is enablement happening. And the important thing to remember here is that it is a live model. It is not set in stone. We do correct our courses in between. Just to give you an example, there were about 60 practices that were prescribed at the beginning of the model. And then we listened to the feedback, and then we pared it down to about 30 very crucial ones, so that it is light on the people implementing it. So again, just ensure that we don't fall into the bureaucracy and micromanagement. This is something that it needs to evolve to the needs of the organization. So there is a different stream called the HR and culture stream, where you talk about upskilling, you talk about role transformations, you talk about career planning, learning paths. All of that is something that you will hear from Sumant's speech tomorrow. So change management and communication, this is something, as the name suggests, you have to ensure that you take people along the journey. You have to give them the why part of it up front. Yeah, I think there's definitely things that we should be doing better there, of course, just to admit to it transparently. And there is definitely going to be an impact on your processes and tools. So in the past, maybe you were used to running large-scale programs, but now there's going to be smaller and tightly controlled budgets. The tools that track all of these needs to change. We plan to also have these light sync tools across agile release trains. There is going to be a brand new capacity-based management tool that's going to be built. The erstwhile time tracking systems will also evolve to cater to the Agile at Scale model. And lastly, there's also a global coordination stream across the program, which ensures that there is the same flavor of Agile at Scale no matter where you go. Across businesses, across geographies, people talk the same language, they have the same set of practices, and that's something that will resonate well across the globe. So, like I mentioned before, every team has to undergo the transformation, and there are 3 steps for every tribe and feature team to come into the journey. So they start off with what is known as the framing phase of the transformation. So you come out with what is your business vision, how is it that you will align to the business, what are the value that you will generate. You work with the coach and form what is your target state. What are those practices that you will achieve at what stage of the journey. And then once it has been approved, you move on to the implementation phase, and there is a set of practices that you continuously improve and mature upon. All in all, all along you get help from the agile coach, both craftsmanship coaches and flow coaches to help on the journey. And lastly, once you present your MVP or the minimum viable product to the program, there is an assessment. You don't have to be perfect on all the practices, but then you need to actually show a roadmap towards how you're going to reach the target state of greater maturity along both axes, both on the x-axis, the continuous delivery practices, the technical track, and on the y-axis, it is the business alignment. So if you can imagine a journey plotting upwards, that is what this is depicting. So there are 3 steps to success for every team, and at this point, we are 50% along the way. So the impact on the business cannot be ignored. So the business is also becoming agile as we speak. So an illustrative example here is about a product owner who has a major role in the way in which the transformation is happening. They are the full owners of the backlog, and they share the vision and their objectives with the IT team. So this is a very key transformation, and it is definitely giving us good results. Also, like I mentioned, there is brand new roles that we created, brand new titles. There is an upskilling program which is massively going to be transforming people from, let's say, regular developers to full stack developers, people who move from production support into the feature teams and can become either analysts or developers. So all that integration is happening. There's a leadership mindset change as well. There is an UpMind program which we created with the coaches. It's going to be covering mostly everybody in the organization. And also, we are embarking on this Management 3.0, which Sandeep is one of our coaches is going to be helping us with. Yeah. So finally, this is what our dashboard looks like. And for secrecy, I kind of made it a little hazy for you. But I'll walk you through it. So we track deployment. What is the number of what is the progress against which the entire organization is embarking upon? So we track the number of feature teams and the percentage of staff that were transformed. We track the satisfaction of the business. So this is the product owner, the product management team, but we also track the satisfaction of the IT teams that are on the journey. There is something called visibility, which means how well does the business anticipate and how well is the backlog visible to the business. There is, at the organization level, the value that we gain out of the transformation is also around the span of control and the role transformation. So one simple measure is, do we go to the market to hire those skills, or do we internally transform them and upskill them? Also, yeah, production quality and stability, these are things that are fairly important. We need to demonstrate that there is good improvement in the stability and the number of defects that are being reduced. Also, the technical depth, there are measures to measure, there are ways to measure the technical debt, and also the efficient use of the tools in what is known as the CD factory and the, the pipeline. So last but not least, it is the value that we demonstrate to the business on the time to market. This is anywhere between 2 weeks to 4 weeks for most of the teams. Predictability means how well does my team, the feature team, deliver what has been committed. Also, one of the cornerstones that I mentioned to you is around the open banking architecture and the move towards more microservices and APIs. And these are business APIs that we track. And those are the ones that create the maximum value and impact. So the number of APIs produced, and more importantly, the number of APIs used, reused to create brand new products or services. So all in all, there is governance at all levels. So we have ways in which we kind of pull the data from feature team levels to chapter levels to tribe levels and whatnot. So the key here is to ensure that we don't overburden their teams. The teams are very happy practicing their backlog prioritizations and their retrospectives with the product owners. But behind the scenes, there is a lot of data that's being gathered. We don't overburden the teams on just filling out forms or spreadsheets. So therein lies the caution there that in spite of this looking quite heavy, you need to make sure that it is not overburdening the teams and give them the autonomy that they truly need. So to sum it up, we have covered all the angles on the Agile Scale program. There is a structured program, lots of objectives and indicators. It is an adapting live model, which adapts to the needs of the organization. And there is the transversality of the shared services. It reinforces that. It's, of course, a deep cultural mindset change. And lastly, it is a global transformation using cloud and API. So I will say that definitely we all have a role to play as both IT leaders and business leaders. So our goals need to move from outputs to more customer delight. So we need to ensure that our managers become more enablers than controllers. We have to focus more on sustainability as opposed to cost cutting. And lastly, the entire organization needs to evolve to become a more collaborative organization from a hierarchical organization. So in summary, there is scaling ahead. Caution, it is not for everybody. Don't try and fit the model or the transformation into teams that don't need to transform. Fail fast, adapt, and evolve. So there was a case where we, felt that there was a transformation that was not going at the right, in the right direction. So we decided to go back to the table and restart it all over again. And governance is the key to agility. It is not oxymoron in the agile space. So lastly, may the agile force be with you. And I think this goes very well with our brand new slogan, the future is you. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Bala.